Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be demoing and reviewing the brand new, this is the Dior Forever Blush Soft Filter. So I'm actually really excited about this because I have been playing with this for, it's been a week now, just over a week. So I have had a lot of time to play with this. I'm also going to be comparing it and telling you which I prefer out of all the liquid blushes that I have, and then some new cream releases as well, just to give you that comparison. I'll compare the new Dior blush, the cream blush that was just released as well. But let's just get started into the details. I have not applied it to my skin yet, so you're going to see the application process as well. I have applied my other foundation products, so I've just gone in with foundation and concealer. That's it, and then I applied mascara. I haven't gone in with any other products because I will show you how this is best applied. So Dior Forever Blush Soft Filter is Dior's first liquid blush with a whipped airy texture for a natural cloudy flush. Its buildable formula delivers an instant soft focus filter blurring blush effect. The finish is a luminous matte with cloud skin effect. It's a whipped texture with an airy feel with second skin sensation. It's a buildable coverage. It is skincare infused with hyaluronic acid, so I wouldn't really call that skincare infused. And there are 10 buildable shades revealing the perfect nude color for a variety of skin tones. So this blush applies like a cream and sets like a powder, blending seamlessly into the skin. A single swipe gives cheeks a soft matte color with a smoothing, blurring finish that enhances the complexion. And it keeps the skin feeling comfortable and hydrated for up to 24 hours. So let's just get started with the application, and I'll go over with whether I agree with that. So there are 10 shades, like I said. So this is $60 Canadian, and I'll just pop over to the US site. It is 49 US dollars, jealous. So I'm going to start off with the color. I chose the shade 07 Orchid. It was really hard to determine what color to buy. I was going to get the shade Petal, but then when I saw a swatch of it, it looked really orange. So I was really worried about that it would go, and I am someone where things tend to warm up on my complexion. And then the shade underneath looked a little bit gray toned. So, and that's the problem with really matte tones. Sometimes they can pull orange or gray. So I was a little concerned about this, but the shade Orchid is a nice, really beautiful nude tone. It doesn't have any shade descriptions under them, which is really annoying. I wish Dior would describe what the shades are so that you know what kind of shade you're buying. But it just basically has a swatch, like a photo of someone wearing the color, which again isn't helpful if you're someone with really warm skin or really deep skin because it just has a fair toned model. So I wish they would change that, but my bottle also came broken on the edge, but I will go ahead and show you the bottle. So it's a really beautiful glass bottle, and if you can tell, mine arrived chipped, which is the only problem with glass, but it is gorgeous because it does have that luxe feeling to it. You can see the Dior written. The shade Orchid is this beautiful nude shade. So we have this applicator. It's just a doe foot applicator, kind of like what you'd receive in a lipstick. So that makes it a little easier to apply. Now, on the Dior site, it shows to apply this by applying 3 dots onto the face and blending out. Absolutely do not do that. I found that if you applied it to the complexion directly, you have the chance where it will dry down on your complexion before you have the chance to blend it into your skin. And I just find it's going to be so much harder to work with if you would apply it in that manner. And again, what if you go in with too much product? Then you've kind of screwed yourself over just off the bat. The best way to apply this is applying a little bit to your hand. And I have to go over the texture of this. Can you see the texture of that on my hand? It is the oddest texture. Okay, I'm trying to describe the best way I could describe this. You know, when you are at the end of like a cream blush or a foundation or a cream bronzer, you know how once you get to the end, it's almost like hairs collect in the bottom of the jar and like the remaining amount of product gets really thick, maybe because it's exposed to oxygen. It almost looks really powdery. That's how I can describe it, like a grainy texture almost, like it kind of just collects and looks a little bit of a thicker texture than a normal cream blush would. Like it just looks like it's gotten a lot thicker. That is exactly how this looks texture-wise. It is so bizarre. Anyways, and I wonder how that will wear. Like, obviously, the shelf life of this is... Oddly enough, this doesn't even have a shelf life on this packaging, and I don't have the box, but now I'm very curious what the box says. It has the little mark, but, like, you can't even read how long this is supposed to last, which makes me think it might not last very long. But I just wonder, because you know how things can tend to dry out as you've had them in your collection, or they can get more liquidy, so maybe that would be a good thing with this. But it's just the weirdest texture. That I've never had a product with this type of texture. But anyways, I'm going to go in with this BK Beauty N15, which is my favorite brush to apply blush. And if you can see, it really does just melt down. This sounds weird. Melts down into a powder finish. Like, it does get almost... It's just such an interesting... It's not powdery looking, but it's velvety looking. It's so interesting. But you can see I've picked it all up, and it does have this blurring quality even on the palm of my hand. And it just gave the palm of my hand like this very nice flush. Anyways, that's just the palm of my hand, but let's apply to the complexion. So I just will bounce it on my skin, going back and forth. And this shade Orchid is absolutely stunning. Now, like my last video, I am going to address the fragrance. This is heavily fragrance, like very, very heavily fragrance. When you open it up, you can smell the perfume, and it's not like a nice natural fragrance scent. This smells like they have put a perfume in this product. It is extremely fragrance. Really hope Dior works on this. They've just consistently been letting me down by adding fragrances to their products, because this is something I would wear every day, but I will not wear every day because of the fragrance. I just know my skin, I don't really know. Okay, my skin personally will not get irritated over time, but I am just nervous about the ingredients in a fragrance. It's going to affect my health in the long term. So I personally will not wear this day in and day out. Oh, it's so perfumey. I just hate it. But that was just one layer of product. So I'm going to go in again, and you can see how it just comes off on this doe foot. The weirdest texture I've ever seen in anything in my life. I feel like you should just swatch it for the texture, because it is so odd. And then again, picking it up with my brush. I will say, even though the texture feels like it will, like, again, if you've reached the end of a cream blush or a cream bronzer, you know that product can be hard to work with, because it's just like this weird, thicker texture. And sometimes it's just like, okay, I'll throw out the product because it's not working the same. This picks up very, very easily. Like you can see, I picked up all that product, and it is very evenly distributed onto this brush. I don't have any excess product collecting in one area. It really is easy to blend, which I was very surprised about. And this shade is just gorgeous. So Orchid is a very neutral nude shade. I would say it's probably like the most brown tone. It's not, I wouldn't call it brown, but it's the most like bronzer color, I guess you could say. It's really, really beautiful. And even though this is a cream to powder formulation, it is not overly powdery, where I feel like it looks powdery on my skin, where it's like, well, I might as well just have applied a powder product. You still get that beautiful blend into the skin where it gives that cream effect, where it's not sitting on top of the skin, which I've had that problem with other liquid blushes, which I will go over when I go over the comparisons. But I just think this is gorgeous. And you guys know I did not like Dior's previous cream blush. That, in comparison, is so glossy. It is so wet. Your hair would get stuck in it. This is the type of cream blush that sets down. I do not feel any tackiness. It has completely dried down. And it is, in fact, blurring. Like, this is something I don't think I would need to go in with a powder over top. Actually, I don't have to go in with a powder over top, because it does set down to a powder finish, but it sets down to a powder finish without it looking dry or cakey on the skin. And it still gives a really nice punch of color, where again, I don't feel like I need to set it down with a powder product over top. It's beautiful. And I just love this shade Orchid. If you guys are looking for a beautiful shade, try out the shade Orchid. It's just beautiful. I just think it gives my skin a healthy flush of color, but it doesn't lean too warm. It doesn't lean too cool. So it's that beautiful neutral tone. I could wear, again, I'm wearing blue, so I can wear this blue without it being too contrasting. And my nails are pink. And again, I don't feel like it's too contrasting. if I wanted to wear something like sparkly or colorful in my eyes, I could do that. I could wear a colorful lip without it feeling like, again, it's going to contrast too much. I just think it's beautiful. And I also don't feel like I need more makeup. Like that's the only complexion product I have on is this blush. And I do feel like this performs best when you go in with your foundation, concealer, and then you could go in with a cream bronzer if you were using a cream bronzer. But for this application, you will want to do your creams first and then go in with your powder products. I found that this did not apply well over top of powder. So before, if I had gone in with my powder bronzer or my powder to set down the skin and then tried to apply this cream blush over top, almost like a cream blush topper like I use with these Merit cream blushes, it does not perform well. It will just look a little bit too thick, a little bit too heavy. It will look powdery on the skin if you would apply it that way. But when you apply it over top of a foundation, you still get that beautiful skin-like effect. So I'm just going to show you how I'd finish my makeup. I'll just do it really quickly. I'm going to quickly set my under eyes using this Givenchy powder. Just a little bit under the eyes. And then I'm going to go ahead, use my Refer 22 brush. I'm just going to dip in, went in with a little bit too much bronzer there. Dip in very, very lightly with this YSL bronzer. I'm just going to bring it a little bit over top of that blush, but not really. Just going to focus it more on the forehead. But then to blend it all together, I'm just going to bring it across. And that's all I'm going to do for that. And then I'm just going to apply a little bit of highlighter. I'm going to go in with the Prada. This is the pink shade, the Prada Light Glowing Powder in the shade 02 Pink. Gonna take a little bit of that just on the tops of the cheekbones. My boyfriend and I are looking at houses right now. So we're going to go look for a house after this. So I don't want to do anything too dramatic because I don't want to look over the top. But you guys, looking for a house. I live in Victoria, British Columbia. The housing market is just insane here. Like, I own my condo, but houses obviously are just like a different bracket. And just looking for a house where you can basically, like, just for fun, you guys should look for houses in Victoria, BC. And look between the like 1 million to 1.5 million range, which is like kind of what we're looking at. And it's laughable what you can buy for $1 million in Victoria. Like, I think you would be shocked. And I just look in comparison to other places and it makes me laugh. And again, just looking at my cheeks, I don't feel like I need to apply a powder blush to set this down or anything. I think it looks really gorgeous. It's giving me that natural color. You could just go over top because usually I'll do my blush last. And I find that this is fine if I just go over top, but I would not go, I would not reapply that blush over top. I think it just looks a little bit too heavy, a little bit too powdery. So you do have to be careful how you layer this up because it does layer, but to an extent. Again, do not apply it over powder. And then to finish it off, I'm going to take that same Refer 19 brush with this Dior Forever Nude Matte Filter. This is the matte version in the shade 02 Light. And I'm just going to take this in areas where I want to mattify. So like the center of my chin, right on my cheeks, center of the forehead. So again, I obviously do really like this blush. I think it is gorgeous. And I do think it is actually a different formulation from some other liquid blush formulas. So I'm just going to compare it to some of my other favorites. One of my personal all-time favorite liquid blushes is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Matte Beauty Blush Wand. That is a tongue twister in the shade Pillow Talk. Now this is different because this is actually like a straight up liquid blush. So I'm just going to apply a little bit. You get that doe foot applicator and it is a straight liquid blush. Like you can see it applies very, very pigmented. You get that same matte effect. You get that same long wear. You get that same, I guess, ease of application because I would call this easy to apply and blend. It does actually, even though it looks very pigmented, it does sheer out very beautifully. It's one of the easiest liquid blushes to work with, this Charlotte Tilbury one. I really like this Charlotte Tilbury one, but you can see that their textures are completely different. The Dior one gives a more blurred effect and it is more matte feeling. This Charlotte Tilbury one doesn't dry down to that same powder finish. It does dry down on the cheeks, but it doesn't feel as powdery as, like, sometimes I will go over top with a powder blush over top of this one just to make sure it is completely set down, even though I do find this extremely long wearing. Where this one, I absolutely do not need to apply any powder over because it is blurring enough and it is filtered enough on its own. There's really nothing I can compare it to, even though I am going to make some following comparisons. But I would say the closest is the Charlotte Tilbury, but the Charlotte Tilbury is just not as blurring. And you can see it is more of a liquid formulation, that liquid to powder versus this being a cream to powder, I guess, even though it's such a weird texture. It's like this very thick texture. Next, we have the Armani Luminous Silk Cheek Tint. And this is very different, I would say. I would say this is most similar to the Charlotte Tilbury, but this one is even more luminous on the skin. This one does not completely dry down to a powder finish, and this is definitely not as blurring on the skin. So again, we do have that doe foot applicator, but you can see this is a very runny formula. It is a very thin texture. It is a little bit goes a long way again with this one. It is pigmented, but this is more of a satin finish on the skin in my opinion. And it definitely differs in that effect. And I find the Armani one, just because of how intensely pigmented it is, it can be a little bit harder to work with than the other ones. But again, you can really sheer it out on the skin. So again, the difference is that the Dior one is just definitely more blurring. These both, I find, again, they are better if you don't apply them over top of powders. Like I would go over top of your liquids. I would not work over top of a powder with these ones. So they are similar in that effect. And then we have the YSL Make Me Blush Liquid Blush, which I know was very popular. And this again is that liquid blush formula, very similar. This is the most similar to the Charlotte Tilbury, I would say. I know I keep on saying each one is the most similar to the Charlotte Tilbury, but this one I would say is definitely the most similar. However, even so, it is different because it is even more matte on the skin. So this is the shade 44. I think this was a very popular shade, and I mean, it looks nice, and this is supposed to be a blurring blush, and I do think it's blurring. However, my problem with this blush is that it doesn't melt into the skin. It doesn't sink into the skin. It sits on top of the skin. So what I like between these two, and again, these are all kind of similar in my mind. These two are definitely the most blurring. However, this Dior one looks better on the skin and it performs better on the skin. This YSL one, it never melts into the skin. It never becomes one with the skin. It just looks like it's sitting on top of your skin. It never becomes skin-like, which is my problem with the YSL one. Even though I loved the blurring effect, it just looked fake and phony. It didn't look like my natural skin was blushing. It looked like I had applied a blush on my cheeks. No matter how little product I used, is just one of those weird blushes that just doesn't mesh with the skin or my personal skin. So if you're someone with drier skin, I would not purchase the YSL. This is something I think I used it like 4 times just so I could really get my thoughts on it. And I've never picked it up again because I just don't like how it looks on my skin. And I just don't like how it performs on my skin. I think it might just be too drying for my skin personally, even though I feel like the effect looks nice. And then compared to the Chantecaille Cheek Gelée, there's really no comparison to this one because this is a liquid blush, but it performs most similar to like my Merit Flush Balm. This Chantecaille one is going to be best for you if you're someone that likes a multi-purpose blush. If you are someone that likes a blush that you can apply over top of liquids, but you also like to finish your makeup look with a cream blush as well. If you just like that to bring that skin-like texture back, this Cheek Gelée from Chantecaille and the Merit one as well, these are very similar. You can apply them as a liquid base to start, and then you can finish it off with powder. But then if you really just want to bring your skin texture back, if things are looking a little bit too powdery, if things are looking a little bit too dull, if you need to bring life back to your cheeks, I love to finish off a makeup look by just applying a little bit of this after I've powdered my skin, after everything, because it just gives life back to your cheeks. So this is going to be best if you are someone that likes that effect, if you are someone that likes that multi-purpose application of this Chantecaille where you can use it over creams and over powders as well. It's just so much lighter on the skin. It is so lightweight. It's not as blurring as the Dior one, that's for sure. Like this is the most blurring blush I've ever tried in my life. It's very, very blurring. It's very comparable to the YSL powder blushes, I would say, maybe even slightly more blurring. Like that's just the blurred effect it gives. But this Chantecaille one is very skin-like. This gives a skin-like texture. It's definitely the most sheer in comparison to all the other products that I have applied. It also is probably the least long wearing, even though I would say it is long wearing because it is a liquid blush. It's going to dry down, but it's not going to dry down to a powder finish. So it's definitely not going to dry down as much as all the other liquid blushes that I mentioned, but it still dries down. You don't necessarily have to set it down with powder. I hope that makes sense. There are ways that things dry down more, like to a completely matte finish, where things sometimes just dry down into the skin, if that makes sense. So this Chantecaille one is a great multi-purpose one, and again, very comparable to the Merit Flush Balm. I absolutely love these ones so much. I just get so much use out of them, but they're completely different from this Dior liquid blush. Like, just the look you get is different, even though it is a liquid. Again, the Chantecaille one, it is still long wearing. It is still a liquid blush. It does dry down, just not to the same effect. And then one last comparison, this new cream blush I really like, and it is from Charlotte Tilbury. It is the Unreal Blush Healthy Glow Stick in the shade Pinky Glow. Now, this is, again, completely different. This is the most similar to the Chantecaille and the Merit Flush Balm, where this actually does give you a really nice pigmentation. So you get that more heavily pigmented look that it would be more similar to the Dior. But this does, it does dry down, but not as much. Again, it doesn't even dry down as much as the Chantecaille one, but this does dry down on the skin so that it's not sticky. Your hair is not gonna get stuck in it. But again, this performs really beautifully if you want to apply it over cream products or powder products as well. This is, again, another finishing touch, which I like to use in comparison to the Merit Flush Balms or the Chantecaille Cheek Gelées. Very similar effect. This shade from Charlotte Tilbury, the Pinky Glow, is one of the only shades that doesn't have a shimmer. So that is my preference personally. And then one more comparison is with the Haus Labs blush sticks. Now, I actually returned mine because I personally do not like those. I find that the Haus Labs blush, like if I want to use a blush that's going to give me that glass-like effect, I want to be able to use it over powder products. And unfortunately, the Haus Labs ones, it will remove makeup if you've applied them over top of powder. I do think they are nice over a liquid, but I just don't think that they're special, and I don't think they're that beautiful. Like, they're just so glassy. They remind me of a hybrid. Like, they're not as glowy as the Dior blushes, but they're definitely not as matte as like my Chantecaille Cheek Gelée or even the Merit Flush Balms. They're just so much glossier. The Haus Labs one are even glossier than the Merit ones, and I just don't find it's that flattering on my complexion. In my opinion, that gives the opposite of blurring on the skin. So in my opinion, those Haus Labs ones are just not similar to these Dior ones at all because I don't find them blurring in the slightest. They are nicely pigmented, and again, they do perform well over liquid, but in my opinion, they're just not even close to this at all. So it's hard to make that comparison when they're not even in the same realm, I don't think. They're just completely different cream blush products. But those are some of my comparisons on the cream blush. In my opinion, this Dior one stands on its own because of the texture of it. It's just such a whipped, airy texture that I've never seen any texture like this. You could see when I applied it on my hand, it is so different from all the liquid blushes that I mentioned. It's just very, very interesting. And I really like that it dries down, that I don't necessarily need to apply a powder product over top. I love how blurring it is. You guys know I love blurred skin. I just love the look of it. I just think it looks so, you can still get a beautiful skin-like effect where your skin looks like skin, but you just get this beautiful filtered, blurred skin look, but your skin looks so natural. That's just my favorite type of skin. And I think this gives you that gorgeous result. I love the color of this because it is so neutral. I don't have a color like this in any of these other formulas that I showed you. Like, it's just so different. I'll show you a swatch in comparison to the ones that I applied on my hand. Again, it just swatches so oddly too because it's that thick texture. But you can see it's definitely more neutral toned, more of a brown in comparison to like the Charlotte Tilbury and the Chantecaille, and this is the Charlotte Tilbury. I think that was the Armani one, and this was the YSL one. So it's just very different. I love that it's a more unique shade to my collection. I love how it wears. I've had success wearing it all the time. I've never found it hard to blend, except if I apply it as the dots on my skin. Definitely apply it how I showed you. I think you will get the easiest application, but I think you'll be really impressed by how long this wears for a liquid blush. It wears even longer than these liquid blushes, which I find wear all day long anyways, but it's even more long wearing. It's like so budge proof. It's basically a powder blush. That's how long wearing it is. And again, I think if you are someone that also likes blurred, filtered skin, you are going to be really impressed with this. So those are my thoughts on the new Dior blush. Obviously, I don't feel like you must run out and get it, especially if you're opposed to fragrance products. I bet we'll see more brands come out with stuff like this. So if you're just opposed to that, I know some people just are against that, and I totally understand. I don't really have a comparison, like the next best thing. I guess it would be the Charlotte Tilbury, but again, the Charlotte Tilbury just does not blur like this Dior one. So I don't have anything to recommend against it because it's just kind of stands on its own. It's very unique. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Did you pick any of these shades up? I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you like it, and I'll see you in my next video.